I've done a couple recent videos on fixing the core on this deck. So it's a plywood core. So it's a layer of fiberglass on the very bottom. Then there's a layer of plywood, then another layer of fiberglass, and then there's these teak planks. And rainwater gets in these screw holes and gets down into the core and can rot the core. So in previous videos, I've done some work on this area, just this one area. So what I did originally was I removed the bungs, which are little wood plugs, then I removed the screws, and then I injected acetone down in these holes. And when the acetone evaporates, and acetone evaporates really fast, it draws the moisture out of the core. And I was saying in the previous videos that there was a Formosa 41 boat just like this back east, and the guy ripped the whole teak deck up, ripped the top layer of fiberglass off, and got down to the wood core. He was concerned that the wood core was rotted. And so on his, and because it was back east, they get a lot more rain than we do out here in California. In the plywood, there was you could see where the wood had gotten wet and soft, and maybe a little dry rot, but there were only little circles around the screw holes. So on his boat, they looked like about the size of a quarter, and the rest of the core looked solid on his boat. This boat doesn't get as much rain on it, so I don't think this is as bad as his boat was, and his boat wasn't bad really at all. It wasn't too bad. But the previous owner did this process on the other side of the boat, all along the whole cabin, and so I'm just going to continue on a little at a time in doing this. So I've already did the acetone treatment, and I did it. I let it sit for a week, and I did it a couple times during that week, injecting acetone down in here with a syringe to get it down into the core, and then hopefully it draws the moisture out of the core. And then last week's video, I went ahead and used penetrating epoxy, which is designed to treat dry rot. And I used a syringe and injected all these holes full of penetrating epoxy. So it's a real thin epoxy. And dry rot is like a sponge. It'll soak that epoxy up just like a sponge, and then once it cures, it's super strong. So all I got to do now is just go ahead and replace the screws. Here's some of the old screws I removed. Here's some of the old screws that I removed. Some of them were brass, some of them were stainless steel. And I'm going to replace them with stainless steel. Now they're flathead. These are flathead screws. And probably better to use flathead because you can use a screwdriver. Because when you got the screws down in here, then you put you glue the wooden bung over the hole to cover the hole up, like here and here. I don't know if you can see that. The glue gets down into the screw head, and so if you want to remove the screw, you have to remove the wooden bung, and then you have to dig the glue out of the screw head. And it's pretty easy with a flathead because you can use a really tiny flathead screwdriver and just back and forth, scrape it out and clean that slot out so you can get the screwdriver in it so you can back the screw out. I ended up, and they're hard to find, flathead screws. I mean, if you go to the hardware store, I can find them, but I went to a boat supply place and they don't have any flatheads. Everything is Phillips, and so they're going to be a little harder to clean out if I want to replace them. But I'm gonna try. I'm thinking some butyl tape for the plugs and for the wooden plugs. So then how I'd clean these Phillips heads out if they get glue down in there, or butyl tape. Butyl tape never dries, so it'd be pretty easy. Is I'll use a probe, which is like an ice pick, but really, really small, kind of like a needle, and just and then clean the slots out for the Phillips. So let's see how this compares to these other screws in size. I think they're about right. I got some bigger ones if I need them, but I want to just stick with the same size because they can't be much longer than this, or they're going to end up going all the way through and into the boat. So that's pretty much the same size. Let's see these here. So this is one that came out of the deck. I think I need to turn them this way because of the camber. Yeah, they're exactly the same size. So I'm just going to continue on with these new stainless Phillips screws. And so I'm just going to go ahead and put them in and see how this goes. I may have to drill these out because of the epoxy, but let's see if I can just get them to go in without drilling them. I may have to drill them because this thing's just spinning on me. It doesn't feel like it's biting. Yeah, these are going to have to be drilled, which is okay. So, yeah, I can tell this one definitely has to be drilled because it's pretty full of epoxy. So what I'm going to have to do is get my drill out with a real small drill bit. Drill bit needs to be smaller than the screw, otherwise you're going to have a problem. And I put the drill bit in pretty far, so it's about the same as the screw length, because I don't want to drill all the way through my boat and into the interior. So, okay, let's see what I can do here. Okay, so I drilled a hole. Let's see what happens. Let's see if I can get this to go in now. So that was good that it was really tight when I tried screwing it in. Wow. The screw's not biting. It just spins. Okay, that's not good. So I'm going to need a bigger bit. I don't understand why this is not going straight. I can't get the screw to go straight in. It's going crooked. Okay, that looks good. And that's really tight too. And it's deep enough I can put a bung over the top. So that's perfect. That's exactly what I want. And because the like if I was to put these screws back in before I put the epoxy in here, the holes are just totally stripped out. So the screw wouldn't even hold. It would just, I could probably pull it right out with my fingers. This went in really tight, so that is a good sign. That means what I just did worked with the epoxy. So I'm just going to continue on. See if I can use the same drill bit. Just try to go straight down. Oh, great. My battery ran out. Okay, well, so at least I know that this works. I'm going to have to charge my batteries. I think the other ones ran down too. I'll go get it and see. Okay, let's try this one. Go straight down. I'm telling you, drilling it, it's like trying to drill cement. I may have to use a different type of epoxy. So that's it for trying to put screws in. I'm going to have to rethink this, but I'm glad I didn't do a bunch of these. I just did one row across, and I'll figure it out. Now, you can see the wood is stained, and what happened was when I was putting the epoxy in, I'd squeeze on the syringe, and the plunger was really, really just strong. I mean, tight. And I put the syringe down in and pushed it down in as far into the core as I could get it, and then I had to squeeze in the epoxy. And even though the epoxy is really thin, it soaks into the rotted wood. And again, it's only small circles of rot underneath each screw. And what would happen was that plunger would put pressure. It would pressurize the syringe. And even though I wasn't pushing down on it anymore, when I lift the syringe out, it would squirt epoxy out at the syringe, and it got all over the wood. So I quickly got a rag with acetone on it and tried to wipe as much of the epoxy off this teak as possible, and I was hoping that the acetone would clean it up. Well, it didn't really clean it up. You can see my teak stained, and so now I'm kind of worried that that acetone may have made this epoxy seep deep into this teak. If that's the case, this area is not going to look good. So I got my little vibrating sander out, and it's got some pretty coarse sandpaper, but I'm going to just lightly sand on here and see if I can clean this up right now and see what I can do with that. Okay, got a kind of a dusty, my vacuum cleaner bag needs to be cleaned out, so I got a little dust here, but I'm going to go ahead and wipe this up. Actually, I think I'll get my vacuum cleaner out and vacuum it up. Yeah, it cleaned up, so it wasn't that deep in the wood. I didn't do a real good job here. I didn't want to sand the crap out of it, so I just lightly went over it to see if how deep that epoxy penetrated into the teak planks, and with that acetone, I was worried that acetone might have seeped in and made it seep in really deep. But no, it's going to clean up fine, so that's not a problem at all. So I'm just going to vacuum this up and put this away and done for today. Okay, you can see it's sanded down and cleaned up, so you can see clean, fresh teak. And so I didn't do too much. I just lightly went over it. I just wanted to see how far that epoxy seeped into the teak planks, and it didn't. So that's good. So yeah, it's okay. So, and I don't know if you can see that one screw that I have in now. It went in really good. It's really super tight. That plank is down really tight, and it's seated in epoxy, so it should never come loose now. It should never pop back up. So I just need to drill out the rest of these holes. I got to go get some drill bits. Unfortunately, all my small drill bits have gotten broken over the years, and so I just need to get some new drill bits and drill these out and get the screws in and put bungs in them, and then just continue on and just keep doing row after row after row, and just take my time with it. I'm not gonna make a huge job out of this, where I'm gonna try to just knock it all out at once. That'd be real tedious, and I think it'll just be easy, just doing a little at a time, and you know, I just have to do it when it's dry, so I might get a couple more rows before it starts raining done. And this area was kind of the loose area anyway, right here where I board the boat, where that step is. Like I was saying, when I step on it, after it had rained a lot, I could hear water squishing under here, and the planks were kind of going up and down, but that's going to definitely take care of the problem. So, yeah, so far so good. Just going to continue on with it a little at a time.